Cardi takes a look at adult yokai watch in Nioh 2.
Well, the end of March 2020 has come and gone, bookending yet another Japanese financial year. The best part of that is, of course, the smorgasbord of highly awaited game releases direct from our northern neighbours. That's Japan for those playing at home. Though there is one I've kept my eyes fervently trained on, the follow-up to one of my favourite games of 2017, Nioh 2. Right from the get-go, Nioh 2 throws a few curveballs, offering a similar experience to the original game, but dresses it up a little bit differently. The game serves as a prequel, set several decades before, as you play a customizable half-human, half-yokai named Hide, who traverses through the demon-infested lands of Japan. As the end of Sengoku period brings about ruthless warlords attempting to usher in their own ideas of prosperity and ambition, Hide must also be as wary of humanity as they are of yokai. So for those who haven't played the original game, Nioh 2 is what's described as a masocore game with a very heavy emphasis on visceral combat and an endearing focus on Japanese folklore, peppered with real-life historical figures. Playable levels are divided into main story and side chapters that help to level up your character with a resource called Amrita. From there, you can choose to level particular attributes that help you max your health, ki, weight class, weapon proficiencies, and much more. A lot of that can describe the first title in the series, but this is where Nioh 2 deviates and expands upon its solid foundations. The biggest change in Nioh 2 is the introduction of the Anima Gauge, which powers the dormant yokai abilities inside you. The handiest addition to your arsenal is the burst counter, which will stop enemies and their unblockable attacks dead in their tracks, while collectible soul cores from tougher enemies can be mapped to 2 additional slots to your yokai loadout. These changes keep you on your toes at all times and seek to reiterate the point that Nioh is a series that prides itself on reactive counter-based strategies, and the comparisons to games like Onimusha or Ninja Gaiden couldn't be any more obvious. Yokai also come in different forms depending on the guardian spirit you equip, each with their own movesets and burst counter timings. For example, speedier yokai forms are more beneficial for higher dexterity builds, and ranged benefit from those who spec magic first. In the original game, guardian spirits could be activated to buff your weapon power and were a fairly one-note ordeal, so it's great to see Nioh 2 try to flesh them out a bit better. As for the weapons, 2 new types join the roster, such as the ninjutsu inclined hatchets and my personal favourite, the switchglaive. This weapon is the epitome of versatility, as each stance can be comboed into each other and serve different purposes. High stance brings great stun, low stance is perfect for high DPS combos, and so on. It really feels like a weapon that's been ripped straight out of Bloodborne, and it really pays dividends for some of the more aggressive Nioh players. While we're on the topic of weapons, I need to air my dirty laundry with my biggest gripe of the game, the Diablo-style loot system. I get that it was like that in the first game, so it's pretty much impossible to overhaul the system, but the rate and severity in which you gain loot completely trivializes some of the more intimate mechanics like smithing and soul matching, where you can pass certain skills and abilities onto new equipment. Though there is a silver lining, if you're a person that tends to blow through games like Nioh very quickly, you're probably not going to notice too much. On the other hand, what you will notice about Nioh 2 is that it remains an awesome follow-up to the original that improves itself on every conceivable level, from the game's performance, unrelenting challenge, and the rich, creamy gameplay goop in the middle. If you've been on the fence about Nioh 2, I highly urge you to get on it immediately and come experience immense gaming bliss.
Now, I think you did a very good job. I'm going to call it out right now.
Thanks, Dad.
Of avoiding using any comparison to From Software games.
Because I did mention Bloodborne,
you did,
so not quite, but points for trying.
But yeah, so, because I think that is the thing. Everyone, when Nioh 1 first came out, they were like, oh, it's just trying to do the Bloodborne thing. And I would argue that it does enough its own Ninja Gaiden-y thing that it stands alone. And I think that's what works for Nioh, is the fact that because it plays so fast, because it plays so borderline aggressively, Bloodborne is a good comparison. It's probably the From Software game that most emulates it, despite obviously sharing that kind of setting with Sekiro. But it's always been that thing with Nioh that's annoyed me, is I hate Blizzard loot systems, and what does it have? A goddamn Blizzard loot system.
You know the reason why? The developers were questioned on it by journalists, and they're just like, we like Diablo, and that's it. It's just a labour of love for them.
It reminds me of Darksiders 1 and 2. Darksiders 2 is a good game, but like, God, that loot system as well. You know what I mean? Like I don't know why they decided that was what they were going to do.
Yeah, it's just a lot of gunk. It didn't need to be there, but
and then your weapons become obsolete real quicker and stuff like that. And I don't think it has to be Zelda where it's like you find one item and that's it. But anyway,
my favorite part is being able to refashion the appearance of it. So if you've got like a really badass looking weapon, you can change the appearance of it without changing the stats. So I like that.
Again, I think from watching you play it and from playing the first one and playing the demos and stuff like that, it still has that fast-paced style. And it's interesting because you know, Nioh 1 was very much a koei-tecmo game. It was released by koei-tecmo. It did so well for them. I think it's one of their best-selling games like of all time, outside of remakes of the same series. Like if you
Given its development cycle,
yeah,
as
if you
well,
consider
yeah.
Dynasty Warriors as a series, it sold more. But if you consider Nioh as an individual game, it sold a lot of units. So it was a surprise for them. And then when they teamed with Sony, we've got this weird thing where they're kind of, it's their game, but Sony are releasing it. But that's what they do now. Like, they make most of their money making Muso games for other companies. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real. That's where a lot of their money comes from. So it's interesting to see how Koei-Tecmo has changed even over the last, say, 10 years.
I mean, once you have that legacy, once you have that backing behind you, it's a lot more easier to kind of get that bankroll. And the same thing with like From Software.
Yeah.
Activision were the ones that approached them about Sekiro, and then the rest is history.
And they were, to be fair to Activision, normally we are rightly able to shit on Activision. But to be fair to them, they just said, just make the game you want to make and we'll publish it. It's the same with the George R.R. Martin one, if that ever comes out as well.
Yeah, it feels very similar to that of like, well, Activision published a whole bunch of Tenchu games back in the day, back during the time where I believe From Software were developing it. So it feels almost spiritual in a way.
Yeah.
Like they're coming back for old time's sake, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, look, you've got a big few games ahead of you as well. You've got Resi coming up, you've got Final Fantasy coming up. Are you looking forward to it at least?
Yeah, and I'm sitting here like, I'm still playing Doom. I'm not ready for any of this, man.
Well, thank you, Cardi. And that is it for us for now from the RMIT studios. Unfortunately, due to coronavirus, we have been told that we have to maintain social distancing. And being gamers, we've decided that social distancing has to mean that we stay at home. So don't forget to check us out on Twitch, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. You'll see all of the stuff that we're doing. We should have the brand new Japanese branch launched by the time you've seen this one, so make sure you look out for that as well if you want your Japanese content. But we'll hopefully be back in RMIT Studios very, very soon. And if not, we will still see you next week.